Welcome everyone. You're in the webinar for today. This is Prepare Your Business for AI with Vault PLM, as Ashley had said. And in these webinars and anytime I do a presentation, I kind of like to go on a little journey, a little story, and talk about some aspects, get your brain flowing a little bit before we actually get in some of the details. But let's get started here. And let's move on here. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is change. So when we think of change, whether it's really a change in how we work, a change in products, do you really think it's a good thing or a bad thing on your own? I mean, really, what does this mean for you? And when we're talking about AI, maybe this is the change that we're thinking about also. So it could, for a bunch of people, mean adjustment, could mean revisions, switching things, maybe disruption, maybe a modification of how you work, and maybe variation as well. Not necessarily a full change, but maybe a variation in how you're doing things. But we like to think of this as opportunity. Now, when we think about opportunity, we think about maybe some things that happened before. So I like to start out also with a nice little quote by somebody that maybe everybody knows. He's one of the most impressive. He was one of the most impressive leaders and innovators of a company, which disrupted and changed changed the way that we used personal devices. And everybody knows that's Apple, and that's pretty much everybody has an iPhone, or at least if you have a mobile phone, it's in a format that really Apple came kind of pushed, not necessarily came out with the idea, but maybe pushed it and led everybody towards that change. So here's a great insight in a short quote, and how he saw change. What he said was, innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not a threat. And when we think about change as an opportunities, we think about, of course, maybe artificial intelligence. Now, that's the big keyword of the time, present time, artificial intelligence. You can't really get away from it. It's really everywhere. So when we start to think about this, with it being everywhere, there's a bunch of AI solutions maybe already out there by maybe different providers. It's really upon us now, and we should really start to think about how we can use it towards our benefit. So with things like the Autodesk AI or Assistant that are coming out in products, Copilot or ChatGPT that's out there, Gemini. Maybe everybody has tried it or used it, or maybe you're currently using it frequently. But there's also AI that's available in maybe our ERP systems that are already out there, like SAP AI, or with Oracle, there might be AI in there. And you might use one of these products already that you might want to get into using some AI downstream. And if we think about also with other products that are now that we can use, like we think about maybe generative design inside of Fusion. Fusion CAD also has some AI tools inside of it to help out with drawings. And they've been around for a few years already. So when we think about artificial intelligence, AI, really, how does it work? So kind of going along the story of, let's build it up here. So how does it work? Well, first of all, it's learning patterns. So whatever data or whatever information you give it, it's learning those patterns, and then it's making decisions on those patterns off of that information. And then it performs tasks like humans. So we think of AI as a tool to help us out, to perform as another person or somebody that can do the job. And not only that, but it can give us insight into other possibilities. So there might be issues or possibilities that might not have even been considered by somebody. Maybe somebody like a human is kind of busy, or they might be working on something else. Where AI, we can give it a lot of data, and it's going out there and checking a bunch of stuff and maybe giving us that insight. And not only that, but then if we do want something, it can give us the answers from that data. So when we go to a diagram of how AI is working, is very simplistic. We have some input here at the very beginning of the data that we give it, It's learning the patterns, it's making those predictions, and performing the tasks and giving us a result. But the first thing really that we see on this diagram that we need for any successful AI implementation is data. And really data is the place and the is where we can really make that change now inside of our systems and with what we have. So reviewing just a little bit on AI. AI is really hungry for data. It's needs something to work with. So it needs that data to read and to learn from. It's only as good as the data it learns from, so it means it needs some useful data. It needs the real data. We're not going to throw a bunch of stuff at it that we might not need. It's learning from that data. So if we were training somebody else that's an actual person, we wouldn't go and teach them things that aren't relevant to what we're trying to get the results from. We give it the useful and the real data. We also need to give it clean data. So going back also on that data that might be useful and real. The clean data is things that necessarily have good properties to it, good information to it, good metadata to it, right? And then we also have to give it consistent data. So the data that we do give it, make sure everything has all the information or has that information in it, and consistently give it that. There's a nice little quote that I've pulled in, and it's AI will magnify your poor data faster than it fixes it. So we think about needing clean and consistent and real data. It's going to magnify that, whatever you give it. So if it's poor, it's going to magnify that and give it back. And the person who actually wrote this quote was, of course, ChatGPT. It's artificial intelligence that wrote that. So it knows that it needs that data and that good data. And putting all of that information into a nice little chart here, we've got the data for AI and what we need. We need useful data, we need clean data, and we need consistent data. And these are 3 points I'm going to be hitting on throughout this whole webinar. So really, where do we start? And we're going to build up on how we get ready with Vault PLM and how we get ready for AI. And it necessarily might not be even Vault PLM. It might PLM. It might be other data that we have in other applications or environments that we need to get ready for AI. And this kind of will pertain to that as well. So let's talk about how we start and where we start. So a simple workflow would be like this. If we're using CAD products, we would go from the CAD product, whether it's AutoCAD or Inventor or Files, through that. And then if we're using Vault, we would have a Vault client and an add-in going to the Vault Pro. So this is where Vault PLM kind of comes into play with the CAD products, Vault Pro, and then that data would then be pushed to Fusion Manage with the Vault connector that's out there now. And then from Fusion Manage, it can be pushed with APIs to ERP. And there's a whole connected workflow here. And through this workflow, we can access AI throughout all those products, whether it's through the Autodesk Assistant that's in the CAD products, Autodesk Assistant maybe in Vault Pro, Fusion Manage, having that data there that gets pushed to ERP, and then leveraging that AI that's within ERP that you might have downstream there too. It's upon us now, and there's tools that help us throughout the whole step of the process, all the way through, that can help us and get ready for AI. So let's talk about Vault PLM. So with Vault PLM, there is two different products that come in Vault PLM, Vault Professional, Vault, and Fusion Manage. And I just made this nice little diagram here. It kind of looks, when I started putting this together, it kind of looks like the MasterCard logo. So I put it in as a like a little MasterCard here, and a nice little a quote that I kind of took from MasterCard and rewrote it. There are some things that don't work very well, but for everything else, there's Vault PLM. So when we're thinking about if you're using Vault, if you're using the Autodesk CAD products with Vault, and you want PLM, and you need your data downstream down the ERP, Vault PLM is the way to go, and that's where it's going to work well for you, that collaboration and those tools going through. So going back to this original diagram, let's continue on with this. So we had the data here in the very beginning, and with this data, let's put Vault PLM in there. We can interchange that data field with Vault PLM. Yeah, that makes sense for AI. So we're going to really focus on those initial steps of Vault PLM. And with Vault PLM, yeah, it's encompassing both Vault Professional, Fusion Managed products. And with that data, it's going to be able to be able to be pushed downstream into AI to be able to use AI in those downstream products. And whether it's in the Autodesk ecosystem or outside of that downstream. So with Vault PLM, just to have it in your brain, it's Vault Professional plus Fusion Manage. Okay, and with that, Vault PLM licensing includes Vault Professional and Fusion Manage. So there is now a Vault PLM license, which you get access to both Vault Professional and Fusion Manage. So if you are if you already have Vault and you have and you want Fusion Manage, you can combine that into a Vault PLM license. If you're thinking about it, you can also purchase the Vault PLM licenses and implement Vault, and then be able to go right to Fusion Manage because you already have that license of Vault PLM, all wrapped into that single license. Okay, so in Vault PLM, the first part of that is Vault Professional into that subset. I have some keynotes here on Vault Professional about how we should have our data clean and what we should be doing. So the first step is, yeah, let's get all our engineering data into that master container. Let's get it all into Vault Professional. So if we have it in other locations, so if we have network drives, or if we have different products, data management products for storing that, let's get it into a single master container. Let's get it into Vault Professional. Why not just have it there? Vault can handle all different file types. It can handle all the data you throw at it. And then we've got those tools that can connect the Vault with Fusion Manage and other tools to other places as well. Next thing, let's standardize that data management for the data management tool. Yeah, like I just talked about in that container, standardizing that tool. Standardizing the workflow and the structure. So have your users in a standardized workflow and a structure inside the Vault. We don't want people putting their files all over the place or working separately and having their own sort of process that they're doing every day. You want that standardized workflow. You want it, and we can do that with locking down how things are pushed to different states inside of Vault. We can have structures. So you've got your file structure inside of Vault, and you can have that the permissions set to the different people, different groups, and have that structure set and defined. I also want to standardize the data and the metadata. Yeah, properties, have those filled out. Also with the mandatory fields in Vault Professional, you can set mandatory fields. That data must be filled out. For those fields have to be filled out. If they aren't filled out, yeah, no data is gonna equal bad data. So if we are thinking about using AI tools, if we don't have the data there for the AI tool to read, well, it's no use for us then. Let's also clean our data. So with that, let's try to get rid of our duplicates. So if we have files that are in the Vault that might have the same duplicate names, there's a lot of times I run into many different duplicates inside of Vaults for customers, or maybe they're different file names, but maybe they're the same file, but they're different names. Let's try to get rid of that, because when AI starts to pick up the information, or even if you're as a human, if you're trying to go pick up that information and find that information, that data is maybe is unknown, which one to use, and also going back to the no data. If there's no data there, how am I going to find it? And also fix or remove the bad data. So if there's something that's not needed, or if it's the wrong data inside of a file or for metadata, that also triggers it downstream. Maybe we get some bad results. So remember, AI is only as good as really the data it learns from. So really that first step in getting your data ready for AI is getting it into a master, standardizing everything and cleaning it. All right. Going back to that diagram, useful, real data, clean data, and consistent standardized data. Okay. A lot of times I like to show off a little example here. And this is an example of someone using maybe Excel as a PLM system. And with this, Excel sometimes is treated as a PLM where they're keeping track of things that are getting changed, the metadata maybe for files, projects inside of Excel. And there's no real good collaboration between Excel and Vault and Inventor or any other CAD product. It is really a manual export from that data over to the like BOMs or information for bills of material into Excel. It's really a manual export out and putting in Excel. And then, yeah, that bidirectional data transfer is really non-existent or is not easy back and forth for that. And really, at that time of export, it's not connected. So it requires like a manual trigger again, a manual push of that data over and update of the Excel file. And with that too, there's additional documents, and there's no real workflow actions or automation there. So it's kind of disconnected and it's very cumbersome. So let's just get rid of that. Not necessarily getting rid of Excel totally, but get rid of Excel as a PLM system. All right, Excel has its good use cases in other locations, other places. Let's get rid of it as a PLM system. Instead, let's use the tools that are available out there. So we've got an add-in that goes from the CAD system to Vault Pro, and we've got the connector that goes from Vault Pro to Manage. That's the Vault PLM system there. Okay, we've got our engineering data in the Vault. We've got our process data maybe in PLM. So your change orders, your change requests, your quality process data in there. You've got bidirectional data transfer, which is out of the box. So we've got the add-in and then the connector that is available from Vault Pro to Fusion Manage. We've got that bidirectional data transfer. So we've got the information that can go back and forth. We have real workflow actions and automation. So if in Vault we go to release data inside of Vault, it can actually get pushed, the data, metadata and data can get pushed to Fusion Manage. And then when something like a change request or change order is pushed to another state inside of Manage, we can have that trigger back into Vault. So there are workflow actions and automation there. It's streamlined, it's efficient, it's all set up, ready to go. Just takes a little bit of hey, let's just set it up. Let's make sure that we have our correct properties there. Bam, it's already there. And we've got our connected data with our item master from Vault, and with that and into PLM and pushing it with the Vault connector, making it easier and connected. So when we were talking about item master, that last bullet point I was talking about, you might use Vault, but you might not use the item master yet. So why do we use the item master? Well, item master links what you sell, items, we call them items, to what you produce, the CAD files. We think of an item as like a bucket. So it's consolidating all that information into that one bucket. So one item might contain the file, the CAD file, the drawing to that, maybe other attachments that are necessary for that product into that one bucket. And then that item has a snapshot for that relevant data. So Item can be revised. So we've got release history on that too. So you can have a snapshot of everything that is for that product into one revision, into a second revision. So we can keep track of that. We don't need to have separate files anymore that we're pushing separate files to different states or different revisions. We can have one bucket, keep it all in there, and then that's where it's handled. And with items also, it enables our BOM management. So in an item, we have a bill of material inside of it. And if you are creating an item off of an assembly, you have the bill of material inside of that item of every single sub-child item inside of that assembly for every file underneath there. So we have a bill of material. And that bill of material also can be pushed to Fusion Manage. And with that Fusion Manage, there is the integration of Item Master. That's why we use Item Master. Items and the metadata on the items get pushed to Fusion Manage. That's what is integrated in. The BOMs also get pushed to Fusion Manage, so that's that integration there. And with items also, it's streamlining that data flow. So when we are pushing that to Fusion Manage, it's pushing that information to Manage. Then we can have a data flow and that downstream processes that other people downstream, such as reviewers or quality or maybe the factory floor or somebody else, can actually view that data in Manage and then have that data that they can see that's real from the CAD file that originally got created. CAD file to item all the way to Fusion Manage, and then they can use that data downstream and also collaborate and take part inside of that workflow downstream. So you might ask another question, what if I don't use the Item Master? Well, yeah, of course, the first thing, of course, we can help out with the training and configuration. Yeah, we have multiple resources here that are experts in items. Also, another one, is there an easy way to go from file workflow to item workflow? Well, there are some out-of-the-box tools inside of Vault Professional that you can go from item or from file, and it's just right-click on the file and assign update item, and that creates the item. But there are a couple steps after you do that you might necessarily need for maybe setting different lifecycle states on it, or setting different revisions to it, or gathering all the information for that item. And we have some tools that we're going to be releasing in the next few weeks that are coming soon. And I'm going to show you those right now. It is something that we call Vault Sidekick, and it's an add-in to the Vault client. And there's a tool that's called Transition Files to Item Workflow. And this can be used on a right-click of a file, either single or multi-selection, or you can right-click on a full folder and it grabs all the files in the folder, and you can batch process those files. And what we're doing is we're doing it on the files. So we can, if we have a file already, if we already have a Vault Professional that has a file-based workflow and we want to transition over to the item-based workflow, because we want to use items for Vault PLM and for AI data downstream. If we want to transfer or transition that data over, either we do it through the out-of-the-box manual steps, which might take a while and take a bunch of steps for each individual file, or we can use a tool like this that allows some automation to be able to do that. All right, and I'm going to show you here some more details about it. So we've got settings just for the tool. There's a bunch of settings in it. And what we can do is we can set the item when it gets created the same as the file workflow, with options there. And we can also reset and blank out file workflow after we create the item. And it also assists the configuration of the items. So things that maybe need to be done manually, we can also assist in that and automate that. So really, what am I talking about here? With the setting the item workflow the same as the file workflow, with this, when we right-click on the file and say the file has already a lifecycle state of released and it's in like maybe revision B, if we want that file to start at that point already as we transition from the file-based workflow to item-based workflow. Instead of having to do it and bump it up manually after we create the item with the out-of-the-box tools, we can use our tool here to right-click on it, click on it, transition the files to item workflow, and it will copy that lifecycle state, the revision information, and apply that to the item after it gets created automatically for us. And then what it can do then, we can have a checkbox on here to reset, to blank out that file information. It keeps the history of all the information before that. It creates just a new version, but it blanks out we can have it blank out the revision, the lifecycle definition state, and also set it back to base if we wanted to. That way, when you're transitioned fully from the file-based workflow or the item-based workflow, the files now no longer have a lifecycle on them, so that somebody is not getting confused. Hey, how should I set the file to release or revise that, or should I do with the item? Well, if we use this tool and we reset the file back, and we're now using the item is now the master at that point. So here's a video, and I'll explain. You can see here I have a file here. It's at release and revision B, and it's in a specific category. I think it's my engineering category. And we got this tool, transition files to item workflow. And with this, it's going through. It's creating the item. It's checking the file lifecycle and revision, copying that information, so it creates the item. And it's going to apply that same state revision over to the item, gives you information of whether it's successful or not. You can see the file now is blanked out. It's got an item assigned to it. But now you see that the file is there, or the item is there with the same revision, the same state, and the files attached to that item there. So now we are, so with this is when we started with this video. This is the start of, again, we're starting here at the file-based workflow. We already have this existing in our vault. We use the tool to switch over to the item-based workflow. And this is doing all the automation normally that we would have to do manually for us automatically in one click. I'll let this play through one more time. Here's a success. You can see it blanks it out. It still has the history for it, so you'll still be able to go back and view the history of all the revisions and lifecycle states. But here's our item now, newly created with the revision and the state directly off of that file. Okay. So thinking about, I talked about Vault Sidekick, and that tool wasn't available in Vault Sidekick. We have other tools that might be useful for items as well that are in Sidekick. We have job processor enhancements. So we've got jobs for creating PDFs, DXFs, and steps for files within items. Right now, out of the box, you cannot create a PDF, DXF, or step off of the item of those files that are attached to that item. You might need a third-party tool to do that, or some other kind of scripting to do that. Well, in Vault Sidekick, we have now jobs that can do that. And you can just right-click on the item, and you can send the job for creating a PDF, DXF, or a step of those files, and it goes to your job processor and creates those off of the files that are within the item. We also have creation of PDF of Office files. So that's not out of the box either. If you need PDFs of doc files or Excel files, we can do that with also the job processor and Sidekick custom jobs. And then we also have a job on the check-in of a file. So if we have a file that gets checked in and we need to run a job right away, maybe we need to create that PDF right away of something. We can do that right on a check-in instead of having to send it to a different state or manually right-click and create PDF or however other action we want to do with either third-party tools, whatever. We can do that with Vault Sidekick. There's also other tools that are for orphan files and duplicate file cleanup. So there's a tool for, if you click on it, it'll actually pull you up and you can search and filter all orphan files, meaning they're files that do not have parents. So they're just files that are out there sitting. Maybe you want to clean those up, and you can filter those out by name, by type, by extension, however you wanted to do it, and clean those up. You can do it all in a dialog, clean them all up at the same time. Also, with duplicate file name cleanups, you can export all of the duplicate file names. So we can do that out of the box. We can get a report on those. But with this duplicate file cleanup tool that we have, we can export that out to an Excel sheet. And that with that Excel sheet, we can say, do we want to rename or no action on each one of those files that are duplicates? And we can give it a new name and then import that Excel sheet back in, and it will go into the Vault and rename all those files if we wanted to. We also have visual lifecycle tabs. There's a bunch of tabs that are included with Sidekick. So one of the good ones here is the visual lifecycle. You can see over here on the right-hand side, there's a screenshot of it, of where we're at in the state, and then where can it go visually to different states. And that's per security, per permissions of the user that's actually logged in. So different people will see different arrows that go to the different states. And we also have things that are like files checked out to administrators. And if you're our administrator, you can check out every file, or you can see all the users within the Vault and then see which files they have all checked out as well. We usually sometimes have done out of the box, we just do like a save search or something like that. But with this, there's a visual search, and it's very quick. And yeah, for an administrator, dropping down to find all users and seeing what files checked out, and you can see a visual thumbnail of it, and then go to the file directly as well. And there's a lot of other tools too, and I'm not going to talk about any more about this because there's a bunch more, but we could spend the whole time about it today. So let's keep continuing on. Oop. So we got our Vault Professional and Fusion Manage, and that Vault data has to be transferred, and that transfer of that data is done with the item masters. That's your metadata, your items and bombs, and your attachments. So that's how it gets transferred back and forth. And with this item master here, we can actually substitute that, or not substitute it, but with item master, how does it get transferred? It gets transferred with that Vault connector that's built into Vault Professional. So with the item master and Vault connector, our number one goal here is to get our data for getting our data ready for AI with PLM. So we were talking about clean, consistent, and structured data and everything like that. That's for all kind of data in the AI. But now we're talking about PLM. So the first thing that we want to do with Vault PLM is using item master. And that's allowing our engineering data and our bombs to be connected. And then to use that Vault connector, to have that connector set up out of the box, bidirectional with Fusion Manage, getting that data there so that we can use that. It's available to you. It comes with Vault Professional, and that's how we transfer that item data over to Vault, or to Fusion Manage from Vault. So we're building upon the workflow that I showed in the very beginning, the workflow of getting that data ready and getting that data connected all the way down through to maybe your ERP system. So the next part of this would be the Fusion Manage and ERP. So we talked about Vault Professional. Now we're on Fusion Manage. So everybody, or there might be some people who have used change management inside of Vault Professional. Well, why use Fusion Manage? Well, the change management is much better inside of Fusion Manage. It's configurable, and it is highly connected. You can collaborate. It's a great product. You can also get your data into Fusion Manage for change orders, workflows, your quality inspections. You can do all sorts of new product introduction, NPIs. You've got all sorts of things that are in Fusion Manage that are really out of the box when you get Fusion Manage. And you can configure those if you wanted to, but you can really use it out of the box for these different things as well. Fusion Manage also standardizes that tool and those workflows for, hey, if we're using change orders, that's standardizing that. That's the product that that participates in change orders is using Fusion Manage. We're not going out to Excel, and then we're not going out to a database somewhere else. We're not going out somewhere else. We might not have to go out to another network drive to view something. all that data can be stored in Fusion Manage. It's one portal, one place to look at it for that information. Enhancing collaboration. Yeah, you can have people that are in there that you can have the CAD users in there that are pushing the data. You can have maybe reviewers in there that are reviewing the information of the data from the projects on change orders or on change requests on those workflows. You can also give viewing rights to people so that they can view the data, view the information in the bill of materials, however they want to view that access. Even vendors can participate inside of Fusion Manage. Like I said before, powerful and customizable, and you can connect Fusion Manage also to downstream ERP. So we're building up now to the ERP. So with Fusion Manage, yeah, we can send and retrieve that data from ERP. It uses APIs that we can get back and forth from managed ERP. And if you already are using some ERP systems, they can be connected, and we've done it already for a few. And you can realize then the benefits of using those the AI tools within the ERP products that you might already have there available. So instead of it being a disconnected workflow of I've got my engineering data here and then I've got my ERP in another location and I kind of have to manually do that, or somebody else is doing that manually, pushing the data over. Why don't we have a full workflow that goes all the way from the CAD system all the way down to ERP with the connectors and everything that we have? So you might already have some of these ERP systems, and they, like I said, we can connect with the APIs on those with Fusion Manage, maybe SAP, Sage, Oracle, Infor on there. And then with that too, those ERP systems can connect to the AI that you might already have available. And the AI that's in your ERP, you might have a push down from top level of your organization. Hey, let's start to look at AI inside of our ERP. Well, this is a great way with using Vault PLM to get everything from the engineering data all the way up through to your ERP system to start doing that. And you can have a workflow process defined to get that information ready for AI. And just going back on my original chart here, remember, with this data within Vault, and this doesn't necessarily have to be with Vault, it could be with anything for AI. We want useful data, we want clean data, and we want consistent and standardized data. I'll leave you off here, the last slide, leave you off here with a quote. Now, PLM is not a tool decision. It's actually an operating model decision. It's not necessarily just about the tool. We're not just talking about Fusion Manage, even though it's part of Vault PLM, but it's operating model. It's the blueprint for gaining value through processes, through structure, through technology, and essentially all the way through with data. Okay, and remember what we said, data is the key fact, the key point of where AI is being used, is gathering the information to use to give you the results, the decisions for that. And with all of this, the AI products that are available now or are being rolled out, there are unlimited possibilities for the future, and this is a great point to start with those key points I talked about, with the workflows I talked about, and maybe some of the tools also that I talked about. And if you want to learn more, we've got a QR code here you can scan with your mobile, and it goes to our website for more information. Okay, and if there's any questions, I can take those in the chat. If there's any questions there, I can see. And okay, yeah, there's a question there from George. Can we get a copy of these slides? I'll have to double check about the slides, but we at least we'll have a recording of the session. We'll double check to see if we can get the slides out to you. But we'll follow up. And Ashley, if you're there, maybe we can grab George's name and maybe follow up with them.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. If there's any other questions, feel free to fill them out right now. And if not, we'll probably close this in another minute or two. Do you have any So there's a question from Eric. Do you have any demonstration of the AI tool being used with Item Master? Are you meaning the assistant tool that's inside of Vault that Autodesk might be pushing out, or is it going to be like a custom tool? I need some more information about that one. From Anthony, there's another question. Was the pricing for Vault Sidekick? We are determining that right now. We should have it within another week or two. It will not be cost prohibitive though for customers. So of course, there are probably going to be two different costs, one for the client, one for the job processor, but we'll let everyone know, and I'm sure we'll have have everything pushed out marketing wise, and we'll let all our customers know. And if you're interested in more about that, Anthony, feel free to reach out to anyone of your contacts here at Hagerman, and we can get you more information about that and keep you up to date. Eric wrote about the AI with the Vault. So I can't speak too much on the tools that are coming out from Autodesk because they haven't released them yet. 27 hasn't come out yet or anything like that. But for example, what we could talk about is an example here of how the AI tools inside of Vault could be used with Item Master. We could have all our items inside of Vault, and we might have properties that need to be changed for a bunch of items. We could use AI to go through and say, okay, all of these items that have this property, I need to change it from, let's say, box 3x5 to box 3x5.5, or a different name. Sorry about that. Maybe it's a different thing. Maybe it's a project number, or maybe it's a material name or something. And we can tell AI then inside of Vault to, okay, let's find all those properties for these items. Go and change it to this new property name, and maybe we give it some more information. Maybe go and say, instead of making a defined string to change it to, go and read the information from this other property and fill it out accordingly. Well, we can tell that to AI in maybe one or two sentences, and it can do that for us automatically. So that's how some of the tools could be used inside of Vault to help you out, assist you with different actions on maybe cleaning up your data, making the properties clean by filling out the information, getting it useful, and also maybe cleaning up the data. Also, maybe go and find all the items that aren't being used by anything, and then find that as well there. So a bunch of different tools that can actually read the data for you and help you out. A couple other questions here. Work for a company that doesn't use a typical BOM structure, but let me read that one. But the engineering is built off of specifications. Yeah, so if it's built off of specifications, you're still going to have a BOM inside of your an assembly inside of the CAD files. If you're creating assemblies, you're still going to have a BOM in there, but you don't necessarily have to have the BOM coming from the assembly from Vault or from wherever. If it's in Fusion Manage, you can create BOMs that are manual BOMs as well. So if the items are already from Vault inside of Fusion Manage, you can create manual BOMs inside of Manage and say, okay, for a specification, it might be this part, this part, this part, this part, and how many there are inside of that BOM, and have it stored there. So it's flexible in that aspect. So it doesn't have to always be linked back and forth to the CAD products. You can just have separate CAD products, just push all those items over the Fusion Manage and then build the BOM over there inside of Manage. And you can have multiple BOMs, different types of BOMs over in Manage also. So that's flexible also. You can have like manufacturing BOM and E-BOM, all sorts of things there too. All right, there's another one. Is there a way that Fusion can compile point cloud data as well? I don't know if that was a question about either Fusion Manage or Fusion CAD, but if so I'm going to be talking about the Manage part of things. So if there's point cloud data inside of Vault, and you create an item off of that file, because you can create an item off of any file really inside of Vault, and you attach it to it. If you push that item over to Fusion Manage, it has a reference to then that bucket, that item. So then you can use that point cloud data inside of other that item for that point cloud data inside of other bills of materials if you want to. There's another question from Jeff there. Would your Sidekick tools circumvent the need for Cool Orange? In some situations, possibly, and in some situations, no. It all depends on what you're doing currently. If there's a lot of customization, that's where we would still probably go to Cool Orange, because they make it really easy for customization, for custom scripts, custom actions, automation there. With Sidekick, we really have right now just the default out of the box tools for doing this. So in that case, if it was just like creating PDFs off of items, PDFs off of files within items, DX off of files and items, or step off of things that like you would normally do out of the box on the file side, yeah, we have tools in Sidekick that will do that, and that can take the place of that. All right, another question. If you can create manual BOMs, they can still be linked between the two. Yes, Dylan, yeah, you can, because you can have a BOM that's in Manage, and it doesn't have to be linked to the structure CAD, because the BOM can just reside in Manage if you wanted to, be set there and created there, and you can manipulate it there, and they can be linked to ERP, and you can just keep the BOM, that BOM structure that you wanted in Manage, and that would be your master for that there.